A honeymoon at a beautiful island resort. It's supposed to be the start of a new life together. But what happens when it ends in utter disaster? This is the story of a newlywed couple, a tragic accident at sea, and the decade-long legal battle that followed. And it all hinged on one single critical question. When a resort provides a boat for its guests, what is its real responsibility for their safety? Let's dive into this landmark case and find out what it means for every single one of us who travels.
Just save yourselves. Can you even imagine? You're in the middle of the open sea, your boat has just capsized, and those are the last words of guidance you hear from your captain. That was the harrowing reality for the passengers of the MB Cocoa Beach 3.
So here's what happened. On the morning of September 11, 2000, 26 guests were heading out from the Cocoa Beach Island Resort. Among them were newlyweds Rulito Cruz and his wife. Now here's the crazy part. There were already storm warnings from the state weather agency, Pagasa. But the boat set sail anyway. And once it hit the open sea, the weather turned violent. The boat got slammed by massive waves, and it completely capsized. It took 45 agonizing minutes for help to arrive. For Rulito and his wife, it was tragically too late. In the middle of all that grief, Rulito's parents, Dante and Leonora Cruz, started searching for answers, for some kind of accountability. And that search would kick off a legal odyssey that would take them all the way through the Philippine court system. The family demanded 4 million pesos in damages, but the resort, Sun Holidays, denied any and all responsibility. They claimed the whole thing was a fortuitous event, basically an unforeseeable act of God that they couldn't control. And get this, as an act of commiseration, they offered the grieving parents just 10,000 pesos, but only if they signed a waiver. The family, of course, refused.
So with that, the family took their fight to the courts. But as they would soon find out, their path to justice was going to be a long and incredibly difficult one.
First, they filed a complaint in the regional trial court, but the court dismissed the case, siding with the resort. So they appealed, right? They took it to the Court of Appeals. But the appellate court just agreed with the lower court, again finding the resort was not at fault. For the Cruz family, it must have felt like every single door was being slammed in their face. Defeated at every turn, they had one last shot, the Supreme Court. After years and years of fighting, their entire case would come down to a single, seemingly simple question that had massive legal implications.
And that big question revolves around a really important legal distinction. Was the resort operating its boat as a private carrier, or was it a common carrier?
Now, what's the big deal? Why does this distinction matter so much? Well, it all comes down to responsibility. A private carrier just transports specific people and only has to observe ordinary diligence, the kind of care a reasonably prudent person would take. But a common carrier, which offers its services to the public, has to observe extraordinary diligence, and that is a much, much higher standard of care. Okay, so the resort's argument was pretty straightforward. They said, look, we're a private carrier, our boats only ferry our own guests, not just anybody. They also argue that transportation isn't even their main business. It's just a little extra service included in their tour packages. And finally, they stuck to their story that they did what they were supposed to do, and the boat only capsized because of a sudden, unpredictable squall, that fortuitous event.
But the Cruz family's lawyers came back hard. They argued that because that boat service was offered to anyone who bought the resort's tour package, which is available to the public, the resort was, in fact, a common carrier. And that means they were subject to that much higher duty of care. And, they pointed out, the resort was clearly negligent for letting that boat sail when they knew full well there were government storm warnings in effect.
So you have two lower courts siding with the resort. The family's hopes are hanging by a thread. The Supreme Court takes up the case, ready to make a final ruling that would set a huge precedent for years to come.
The court went right back to basics, to the definition in the Civil Code. And a few phrases in here are absolutely key. Engaged in the business of carrying for compensation, offering their services to the public. This specific wording would be the foundation of their entire decision.
And based on that definition, the Supreme Court did something huge. They reversed the lower courts. They declared that Sun Holidays, the resort, was indeed a common carrier.
So, how did they get there? The court broke it down. First, the law doesn't care if transport is your main business or just a sideline. Second, since anyone could buy the tour package, the service was being offered to the public. They also pointed out that, come on, of course the transport fee is factored into the total package price. And this last point is so important. They said that to rule any other way would create a massive, dangerous loophole for businesses to dodge their responsibilities.
And since the resort was now officially a common carrier, it was legally bound to that higher standard we talked about, not ordinary, but extraordinary diligence.
So what does that really mean? Well, the law is incredibly clear on this. It's the highest possible degree of care. A common carrier has to carry its passengers safely as far as human care and foresight can provide. I mean, that is an unbelievably high bar to clear.
And this is where the resort's entire defense crumbled. They failed to meet that standard. By choosing to set sail even with official Pegasa storm warnings, the tragedy wasn't a random, fortuitous event at all. The possibility of a squall was totally foreseeable. A cautious person exercising the highest level of diligence would never have put their passengers' lives at risk in that kind of weather.
So, with the resort found liable, the court turned to damages. Based on Roylito's age and his salary as a 28-year-old overseas worker, it awarded over 8.3 million pesos just for the loss of his future earnings.
And on top of that, another 200,000 pesos in moral and exemplary damages. Part of that was to compensate the family for their unimaginable suffering, and the other part was to punish the resort's reckless behavior and send a clear message to other businesses.
And here's the final breakdown of the judgment. You've got the loss of earnings, the moral and exemplary damages, a standard indemnity for death, and the court also required the resort to pay the family's attorney's fees. After a brutal, decade-long battle, the Cruz family had finally found a measure of justice.
So, what does this all mean for us today? This ruling wasn't just a victory for one family. It established a vital precedent that protects every single one of us when we travel.
Here's the big takeaway. If a business, whether it's a resort, a tour company, you name it, offers transportation as part of a package deal to the public, they are legally a common carrier. That means they are obligated to protect you with extraordinary diligence. They can't just hide behind the excuse that transport is just a sideline.
This case really did reshape our understanding of safety and liability in the tourism world, and it leaves us with a critical question for our own travels. The next time you book that all-inclusive package, that hotel shuttle, or that island-hopping tour, who is truly responsible for your safety? Well, thanks to the unbelievable perseverance of the Cruz family, the law now gives us a much, much clearer answer.